So welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we are going to jump into the wild world of Mr. Beast's Beast Games. Specifically, episode 2. And let me tell you, things get intense. We have the transcript here. And shoo, it's a lot. Just imagine like hundreds of people all wanting a shot at winning $5 million. But of course, as the competition heats up, they're faced with these choices, really tough choices that kind of like reveal a lot about human nature, ambition, loyalty, and how far someone will go when there's that much money on the line.
Yeah, it's more than just a game, It's really like watching a social experiment unfold right in front of us. And the thing that I find super interesting is how just like the idea of winning that much money, that massive prize, it distorts even the most basic human instincts. It's wild.
Oh, absolutely. Like right away from the get-go, they're hit with this dilemma, right? Walk away with $100,000 guaranteed or risk it all for a chance at the $5 million. It's that classic risk versus reward scenario, right? But the psychology behind it, all the decisions they make, it's fascinating.
Right. You would think $100,000, like guaranteed, would be enough to tempt anyone. But almost everyone decided to stay and keep playing. It really shows you the power of like aspiration, I guess. The belief that you could be the one to win it all, that life-changing amount. But it also maybe reveals a bit of a blind spot, like they're underestimating the challenges and how many other people are also trying to win.
Like they're all buying a lottery ticket and hoping their number gets called. But as we get deeper into the episode, like the reality of this whole competition starts to set in. That first challenge, hope you can catch it. Oh man, the pressure's on.
Oh, yeah. Imagine being in a room with your team and all these red balls are falling from the ceiling. And if you miss just one, your team is out. The transcript talks about like this crazy frenzy of activity, people running around, coming up with strategies on the fly, figuring out who does what, just like doing anything to avoid being the one who messes it up for everyone. Shows you like our natural fear of failing, right?
Sure.
And it's even worse because you're not just letting yourself down, you're letting the whole team down.
And the stakes are so high, right? I mean, one tiny mistake and it's over. There's actually this one part where a team thinks they're out because one of their players drops a ball, but then they show the replay and it turns out the other team dropped one first, so they're actually still in. Talk about an emotional roller coaster.
It's crazy. It really shows how even in this super chaotic, high-pressure situation, just taking a second to look back, review things, it can change everything. It shows how important it is to pay attention, to not just go with what seems obvious, but to really look deeper and find out what actually happened.
Okay, so then we get to the less is more challenge. And this one is like a total curveball. It's so different. Basically, they have to convince their own teammates to like quit the game, to eliminate themselves. The team with the fewest players at the end, they win. It's like they're totally backwards, right? Instead of trying to beat the other team, you're trying to outsmart your own team.
Exactly. It forces them to deal with this weird social dynamic.
Yeah.
How do you convince someone to give up their chance at winning, for the good of the group? The transcript shows all these different ways they tried to do it, like guilt tripping each other or trying to be all logical about it and even trying to make it sound like they all have this shared destiny. It's so interesting.
Oh, and of course, Mr. Beast, he's got to get involved, right?
Yeah.
He calls both teams at the same time just to mess with them even more. It's like he's trying to break their plans, just to see how they'll handle it all under pressure.
He's definitely the puppet master here, right? He's like stirring up the drama and making things uncertain. But the cool part is watching how the players react. Some of them, they just fall apart under pressure, but others, they kind of thrive on the chaos, and they use it to outmaneuver the other team.
And, it seems like no one wants to quit, like they're all determined to stay in, but then one player actually steps up and makes the sacrifice, eliminates themselves, and that gives their team the win. It's like this reminder that even in a competition this intense, you can still see, like, selflessness and loyalty.
Yeah, it makes you think about like the idea of altruism, Was this just a calculated risk, like a way to get on Mr. Beast's good side or maybe get noticed by the audience? Or was it like a genuine act of sacrifice for the team? It's hard to say for sure, but it definitely adds like another layer to the whole episode.
And speaking of layers, right, let's move on to the ready to toss challenge. On the surface, it seems pretty simple. You toss balls into a cup, whoever gets the most in, they win. But, of course, Mr. Beast adds a twist. He introduces the Golden Cup. If you make it in that one, you win $250,000 for yourself.
That's so smart. Suddenly, it's not just about the team anymore. It's about individual greed versus responsibility to the group. Do you play it safe and help your team, or do you go for the big money and risk it all?
You would think everyone would be aiming for that Golden Cup, right?
Oh,
250 grand. But actually, most of them stick with the red cups, the team cups.
Yeah.
They're more worried about helping their team win than getting rich themselves.
It's crazy, right? It shows you the power of like social pressure, you know?
Yeah.
They don't want to be seen as the greedy one who messed it up to the team. They know the cameras are on them and everyone's watching, not just Mr. Beast, but millions of people online. It shows how much we care about what others think of us, how that can be even stronger than our own desires sometimes.
But of course, there's always one person who has to try,
Mm.
right? So one player goes for the Golden Cup and misses. Talk about a gamble that didn't pay off.
It's a classic cautionary tale. Not only did they miss out on all that money, but they also risked making their teammates mad and maybe even hurting their reputation. It shows you that sometimes playing it safe is actually the smartest move, especially when there's so much to lose.
So the challenge goes on, and one team starts to fall behind, the pressure is building, and they're missing more and more shots. And then, this one player, she does something amazing. She intentionally throws her ball away, like sabotages her own score, to make sure her team doesn't come in last place.
It's amazing, right? Even when they're losing, they're still looking out for each other, willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of the group. It shows you that humans can be empathetic and selfless, even in the middle of all this competition. It's like, for some people, staying together as a team and avoiding embarrassment is more important than winning for themselves.
Yeah, totally. And just when we thought it couldn't get any crazier, we get to the Use Your Noodle challenge. It starts with a memory game, but there's a twist. The real challenge is a trivia battle, and both teams are, like, on fire answering all these questions correctly. It's impressive.
I know. You can tell they're not just, like, athletes or internet personalities. They actually know a lot of stuff. It makes you rethink what you might think about reality show contestants. They have more depth than you might expect.
But Mr. Beast, of course, he has to shake things up, right? So he makes the questions harder for the final rounds.
Classic Mr. Beast. It's all about making it even more intense, you know? You never know who's going to win, and it totally works. There's this one part where a teacher, a literal teacher, gets a question wrong about Roman numerals, and guess what? She teaches Roman numerals.
It just shows you that anyone can crack under pressure, right? Even when you're an expert, the stakes can mess with your head and make you doubt yourself.
Totally. It's not enough to just know the answers. You have to stay calm, focused, and be able to think clearly when things get tough.
And in the end, it comes down to the wire. And the losing team misses a question about Apple products, like basic stuff. But before anyone can relax, Mr. Beast drops another bomb.
There's one more challenge.
Oh, man. Here we go again. This is where things take a dark turn, like really dark. Each team has to pick a leader, and those leaders, they're faced with this crazy dilemma.
They stand in front of a button, and this button, it's showing a number, a dollar amount, and it keeps going up, getting higher and higher. They can hit the button anytime, but if they do, their whole team is eliminated, and they get to keep all the money for themselves. Or they can resist, hope the other leaders do the same, and then everyone gets to stay in the game.
Wow, it's like straight out of a psychology textbook, but with real-life consequences. The transcript shows how much they're struggling, you know. The number just keeps climbing. Past enough for a new car, a house. It gets close to $1 million.
And Mr. Beast, he's right there, like the devil on their shoulder, you know, reminding them it's real money, pushing them to make a choice. It's amazing to watch how each leader deals with it. Some of them are freaking out, others are trying to stay calm and focused. But you can see the struggle, the inner battle.
And the leaders, they're all so different, right? There's a guy who lives in his van, a retired firefighter, a devout Christian, all of them facing this huge moral decision right there in front of everyone.
It makes it so much more real, you know? They're not just players in a game, they're real people with their own stories and struggles, and now they have to face those struggles with everyone watching.
And the episode ends on a cliffhanger, right? One of the leaders turns to look at the screen, and the offer is almost at $1 million. Talk about a test of character.
Right. It makes you wonder, at what point would you break? When does the temptation of getting rich outweigh your responsibility to your team? What would you do? It's the kind of question that sticks with you long after the episode is over.
That cliffhanger, oh man, it's killing me. You can just like feel the weight of that decision, right? $1 million and the fate of your entire team all resting on his shoulders. It's like a modern day story about greed and the sacrifices people are willing to make.
And Mr. Beast, he's like a master at setting up these situations, you know? The pressure is so intense. I mean, anyone, even the best person, could be tempted to be selfish with that much money on the line.
So does he hit the button?
Yeah.
Does he betray his whole team for $1 million?
He does, and it's like instant chaos. You can hear the gasps from the other players. Everyone's in shock, totally betrayed. It's rough.
It's got to be heartbreaking for the players who didn't hit the button right. They trusted him, and he just threw it all away for himself.
It shows you how fragile trust can be, especially when there's so much at stake. I mean, even the strongest bonds can break when you add millions of dollars to the equation. It makes you wonder about what it really means to be a leader. Is it about the group, or is it all about looking out for yourself in the end?
But then, just when you think it's over, right? Mr. Beast does what he does best, throws another curveball. He says the game isn't over yet, and takes the remaining players to this giant warehouse for the final challenge.
It's like he's playing with them, giving them a tiny bit of hope, a chance to redeem themselves after all that betrayal. It's smart. It gets them back into that competitive mindset, even after all the drama.
And this final challenge, man, it's like a scavenger hunt on steroids. They have to find these golden bars hidden throughout the warehouse, but, oh yeah, the lights are off. They're searching in total darkness.
That's such a Mr. Beast move. It's a simple challenge, but then he adds this layer of, chaos and confusion. They have to rely on their instincts and figure out how to move around in the dark. It's not just about being strong or fast. They have to think on their feet and adapt. It's pretty cool.
The transcript describes it as total chaos, people tripping over each other, bumping into walls, calling out, trying to find those bars in the pitch black. You can practically feel the adrenaline,
And just when you think it can't get any wilder, right? Mr. Beast throws in another twist, of course. He's hidden a special diamond bar somewhere, and whoever finds it wins $100,000. Boom, just like that.
Talk about high stakes. It's not just about finding the most bars anymore. It's about finding that one special bar, the one that could change your life. That adds a whole other level of intensity, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Now they're not just competing with each other. They're racing against the clock, knowing that single prize is out there somewhere, waiting to be found.
The transcript describes it as this, frenzy, everyone scrambling around in the dark, hands brushing against walls, voices echoing, hoping to get lucky.
It's almost primal, like watching a pack of animals hunting in the night. It strips away all the, politeness and stuff and shows you those raw instincts, the drive to compete and win.
And finally, the timer runs out. Players come stumbling out of the darkness, some with a bunch of bars, others with nothing. It's over.
It's a stark contrast, The winners, they're ecstatic, they made it, they overcame the challenge, and they're one step closer to the big prize. But the losers, you can see the disappointment, the missed opportunity. It's tough.
But even beyond the competition, this episode really shows you a lot about what it means to be human. We see friendships put to the test, alliances made and broken, moments of real kindness, and then, of course, the betrayals. It's all there.
It's like a mini version of society, all the good and bad stuff, all crammed into this pressure cooker of a competition. It forces you to think about the choices you might make under those circumstances, and it's not always pretty.
And then, in a twist I definitely didn't see coming, Mr. Beast offers the players who got eliminated in that leader's dilemma thing, he gives them another chance, a chance at redemption.
It's interesting, right? You could see it as him being kind, giving them another shot after they made that really tough choice. Or you could say it's just a way to make the episode more dramatic, give everyone a happy ending. Who knows?
He lines them all up and gives each of them one shot to throw a basketball into the hoop, from half court no less. Make it, you're back in the game, miss it, and it's over for good.
It's that classic redemption story, right? The people who messed up, they get a chance to prove themselves, to show they're not all bad. It's like we all want that second chance, to fix our mistakes and come out on top.
Man, the tension is thick. You could cut it with a knife. Some of them take their time, line up the shot carefully, while others just chuck it up there and pray for the best.
You can see how different each person handles it, Some of them, they're excited. They see it as a chance to show off their skills. Others, they're still carrying the weight of that earlier decision. They hesitate. They second-guess themselves. It's fascinating.
Every time someone makes the shot, the crowd goes wild. It's like they're all rooting for these underdogs to make it back into the game. Yeah. It's a great moment. It shows that even in the middle of a competition, people can still be supportive and celebrate each other's successes.
Yeah, it shows you that people want things to be fair. They believe in second chances. It also shows the power of forgiveness, forgiving others and forgiving yourself.
But of course, not everyone makes it, right? Some miss the shot, their dreams of winning are over, and they're left with nothing but disappointment and a lot of what-ifs.
It's a harsh reminder that life isn't always fair, you know? Sometimes you try your best, but you still come up short. But even when you lose, you can still learn something, grow from the experience.
So the remaining players, there's not many left now. They stand together. They've survived another round of these crazy challenges. They're closer than ever to winning $5 million. But it's not over yet, not even close.
It's been an emotional roller coaster, right? It shows you how resilient people can be, how far they'll push themselves to achieve their dreams. And as we head into the final part of this competition, things are only going to get more intense, the choice is harder, and the stakes even higher.
Man, it's crazy to think about everything these players have been through, From those like insane ball drops to that whole moral dilemma with the button, they've been pushed to their absolute limit.
I know, right? And what really stands out to me is how this episode shows us so much about human nature, that whole back and forth between working together and just being selfish. It's like a crash course in how society works, all the good and bad.
Yeah, totally. And through it all, they've shown incredible resilience. Like they've adapted to all these crazy rule changes. They've faced their fears and made some really tough choices, knowing there were going to be real consequences.
It's amazing, right? It shows you how much people can grow and adapt even when they're under so much pressure. They find ways to learn, to come up with strategies, and even support each other, even though they're all competing for this huge prize.
So, like, after everything we've seen, what's the takeaway? What can we, learn from watching these everyday people going through this crazy experience?
I think it makes you think about your own values, like what's important to you? What would you do if you were in their shoes, facing those same dilemmas? It's easy to judge from the outside, but when it's you and there's millions of dollars involved, it's gotta be tough to know what's right and wrong.
Yeah, it definitely makes you realize that anyone is capable of doing good things and bad things. The Beast Games are obviously extreme,
Mm.
but it's kind of a reflection of the struggles we all face in our own lives, just on a much smaller scale.
And it also shows you how important it is to be understanding. These
Right.
players have been through a lot emotionally, and their actions, good or bad, are a result of that experience. We got to remember that.
It's been a wild ride, that's for sure. And I got to say, I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything we've seen. The Beast Games are more than just entertainment. They're like a social experiment that makes you think about some uncomfortable truths about yourself and how people behave.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's been great breaking down this episode with you, digging into all the details, and figuring out what it all means.
And to everyone listening, I definitely recommend checking out the full episode for yourself. See all the crazy stuff that happened firsthand, feel the tension, the excitement, the disappointment, and see if you were right about who would win.
And while you're watching, ask yourself this. At what point would you have hit that button? What would it take for you to betray your team, your values, all for a shot at winning a life-changing amount of money?
That's the real question, right? The one that sticks with you long after it's over. And maybe by thinking about these things, we can learn a little bit more about ourselves and how we'd react when faced with temptation and tough choices. That's all for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop learning.